And welcome back to the booth here at the Team Series Finals. That's Luis Vargas. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. We're happy to have you along as we get into this tiebreaker match. We didn't know for sure if we'd get one of these. It started to look like no, but yes, in fact, we do. Musashi wins that round. Let's take a look at our first matchup here. Yukihiro is going to be playing against Thomas Hendrix. We'll also have Yuki Ichikawa versus Seth Manfield. Kentaro Yamamoto is playing against Lukas, Blohon. As you'll note, these are the players that won their matches to get their teams here. So they're kind of sending the players who have done the best today forward to fight for their teams. And our first matchup, Luis, Yukihiro is going to be on green-red. He's playing against Thomas Hendrix, who's on a much more aggressive bend. It's red-white.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting about this system is that we, by definition, are going to get matchups we haven't seen before because it's the two teams that didn't play each other round one because they're both victorious. And we're going to see if Ken's slightly bigger, slightly slower dinosaurs can triumph against Thomas Hendrix.
Oh boy. Thomas Hendrix has a do I keep this scenario, and he's going all the way down to Lukas Blohon. He asked Seth, maybe didn't get the answer he wanted, getting a second opinion. Maybe scooting back over to his, no. All right, Seth has given this decision his blessing, and it is going to be a mulligan here for Thomas Hendrix. So it looks like we've got another little minute here to chit-chat.
I feel like if you ask multiple teammates, you're probably on the road to mulliganing. I've definitely run, especially in team events, they're like, well, I want to keep, but I know I shouldn't. I hope my teammates tell me that I really should just mulligan this hand. You don't want to hear it, but.
Do you ever just keep it and not ask them?
Well, let's just say this. When I've teamed with Ben Stark before, he has put cards in his sideboard he knows he'll never use, so they're not in my sideboard because he knows I'll want to side them in. The most famous was actually an Abyssal Persecutor, which you can't lose or win the game and your opponents can't lose, and I had no real way to get rid of it, but I really want to play it.
But he knew you wanted to try it out? Well, probably a smart play there from Ben Stark. Keeping the nonsense to a minimum here down in the feature match area. Though we're settling right back in now. We've got a whole nother round to play here. This, of course, is a tiebreaker, which means that whichever team wins 2 of these 3 matches, boom, Team Series champions. They get the trophies, they get the money, they get all of it.
I have to assume that we're going to be in Game 3, Match 3 for all the marbles, eventually here.
Don't see how that doesn't happen. This looks like a pretty easy keep here for Hendrix, who has a nice low curve. And this is actually a pretty nice little hand, isn't it? A couple of 2-drops, a 3-drop, a combat trick, and the lands to cast it. You can't really ask for much more than that on 6.
Wow, Yukihiro's deck is going a lot of different directions. Let's just put it that way. Because he's got Swashbuckling and Cobbled Wings and Fathom Fleet Firebrand. Look at all these nice little low drops. But he's also got River Herald's Boon, which works with Merfolk. And he's got a Colossal Dreadmount just kind of lurking in the back there.
What in the world? Well, he's got a Raptor Hatchling to start things off, but that, of course, is going to do a fantastic job.
Wow. There's a Merfolk. Tishana's Wayfinder is going to make that River Herald's Boon just double in efficiency. And Raptor Hatching was a fantastic draw because I can't think of a much better way to blank Raptor Companion on turn 2.
No, it just completely brick walls it here. And thus far, Thomas Hendrix has not even attacked a single time. He may send in this Frenzied Raptor, though. He has a Sure Strike in his hand that he could deploy.
Yeah, his options here are to play Sure Strike or to play Fathom Fleet Firebrand. I think trading Sure Strike for Tishana's Wayfinder is probably reasonable. Though, Ken Yukihiro might not even block because of that River Herald's Boon. He really wants to keep with a Wayfinder around. Ken does not have a ton of Merfolk in his deck. So he's got like Branch Walker and 2 Tishana's Wayfinders, and that's it.
Well, it looks like Hendrix is going to take the slower route here, play the Fathom Fleet Firebrand. Is this another Tishana's Wayfinder here for Yukihiro?
Almost. It might secretly be a Cobbled Wings instead, but I think it's likely going to end up as a Wayfinder. You want to hit those land drops.
Third time's a charm here, Ken. Yes, he is going to cast it, and he does, in fact, hit a land drop. He's going to put it immediately into play, though. It does go to his hand first. Thomas wanted to write it down, but Ken says, well, I just played it anyway, so no point. There's Plains off the top of the library, giving Thomas his 4th mana source. He does have things to do with his mana here.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he really wanted to double red to cast that Fire Cannon Blast, and though this gets him, 4/5 of the way to the Shining Aerosaur here. So how does combat look from Thomas's perspective? Not great. He can trade Frenzied Raptor for a 2/2 Wayfinder, or trade a Sure Strike for the Wayfinder. Neither of those is particularly appealing, and Ken's got a handful of action here. 6 spells in hand.
Yeah, 4 lands on the battlefield at the moment. No lands in hand for Ken Yukihiro.
Though things could go quite badly for Ken here if he tries to use River Herald's Boon and Thomas plays Sure Strike. One of the ways Ken can approach this game is because Thomas didn't play anything last turn, it's possible that Ken wants to just develop his board and not really get into too risky of a fight here. He might be fine trading off the Wayfinder and not even going for River Herald's Boon. We'll find out soon enough.
He's attacking with the smaller of the 2 Wayfinders.
Yeah, the 3/3 Wayfinder does trade down for Raptor Companion or even Fathom Fleet Firebrand, and that's not as appealing.
It's only 2 damage, so Thomas Hendrix says okay. Firebrand, but wait, there's more. The Cobbled Wings as well as Ken passes the turn back. So even though he's a little crimped on mana here, he certainly has been able to deploy his threats. Pterodon Knight was the draw step there for Hendrix. He plays it immediately and just passes the turn back. Still no attacks for him at this point. That Raptor Hatchling really put a gum in the works here from the 2nd turn of the game.
Ken's got a lot of options here. He can equip Cobbled Wings if he wants to get in with like a 3/3 Tishana's Wayfinder. He's got Unfriendly Fire that could just take out the Pterodon Knight right away. That's certainly the most threatening card on Thomas's side of the board. Or Ken could take this opportunity, now that Thomas is tapped out, to just make some attacks and hope to get some value off River Herald's Boon. Oh, he's just going for it here.
Is he swashbuckling here?
Oh yeah, he's buckling all the swashes. And
my goodness.
If he just puts this on the 3/3 Wayfinder, just starts attacking for 5 in the air, that could really put a clock on Thomas. Though, by putting it on the ground Wayfinder, he's really trying to set Thomas up for a River Herald's Boon.
Yeah, that's right. He's left the 1 and a green available here. It looks like he's even going to offer a trade-off with the Fathom Fleet Firebrand.
Ken is just shoving here. He's sending all his creatures in except for the Raptor Hatchling? No.
He's decided to take a more tempered approach here, just the 2 Merfolk. Still, Thomas Hendrix finds himself behind here and now under assault. 3 in the air, 4 on the ground.
So if Thomas wants to play around River Herald's Boon, he has to offer a really disadvantageous trade. He has to put like 2 creatures on the 4/4 Tishana's Wayfinder, knowing both will die. Or he can put in his more valuable creature, Pterodon Knight, alongside Frenzied Raptor. And that's the only configuration that both kills the Wayfinder through the Boon and doesn't immediately lose both creatures. But if Thomas does that, if he puts the 4/2 and the 3/3 on the 4/4 Wayfinder, then Ken gets to put 1 counter on that to take both out and put 1 counter on any of his other creatures that he wants.
So no clean way out here for Thomas Hendrix.
But he's also not in a position where he can necessarily just take the full hit without any response, just take the 7 points of damage. Because Thomas's hand is not all that well suited for pushing and damage. He's got a Fire Cannon Blast that he can't cast, a Shining Aerosaur he can't cast, and a Sure Strike, which, yeah, that's a good combat trick, but Ken's at 20 life still. That Raptor Hatchling just meant that Thomas never got an attack in. This is one of those unenviable positions where it seems pretty obvious what Ken has. Not that he necessarily has Boon specifically, but he has to have Boon or Sure Strike or something along those lines. You don't put Swashbuckling on your 2/2 ground creature and attack into a 4/2 unless you have something going on.
Yeah, and on top of that, the 4/2 hasn't been able to attack itself, so Thomas Hendrix would love to trade it off, and of course Ken knows that, and Thomas knows that Ken knows that, so there's got to be something afoot here. And the cards that he's thinking about are River Herald's Boon is a possibility, though it would seem less likely in this color pair, but Sure Strike is certainly on the list. All right, looks like we're going to see a double block here.
And Ken can just pass and just trade for both, or he can put both River Herald's Boon counters on the Wayfinder and eat both and survive. So Ken has 2 really good exchanges here. He just gets to choose which one he wants. I think this configuration of blocks just does not work out great for Thomas. I don't think he had great blocks to begin with, but I think this one gives Ken all the decisions and lets Ken basically choose whether he wants to just pick up the clean 2 for 2 this way or play a River's Boon and actually get a 2 for 1 and be left with a 6/6. I think he's going to lean towards casting River Herald's Boon.
Yeah, it does. It's also more mana efficient here. And that is just too tempting, right? Just to get that
it's
savage
essentially
2 for
just
1.
casting a 6/6.
Yeah, that's absurd. Killing 2 creatures at the same time. Let's get a quick update from Tim Willoughby, who's down on the floor.
Yeah, we've had a couple of games already falling on the back tables here. Turns out Evasion, the order of the day on the other 2 games that have been going on. For Seth Manfield, that meant an early River Sneak, then a Storm Sculptor and a Windstalker. Ultimately able to power through everything Yuki Ichikawa had going on because, well, he simply couldn't block. On the other game that we had going on, well, it was Kentaro Yamamoto who was doing the best job of getting in unimpeded. He had Anointed Deacon helping out some flyers, while on the other side of things, Blohon fighting the good fight with a couple of Direfleet interlopers, but ultimately not able to win that race. So it's 1 game to Musashi, 1 game to Genesis, and of course what we have going on our front table.
Thank you, Tim. So splitting games in our other 2 matches, while this one, well, still going Ken's way.
Oh yeah, and Ken is cobbling together quite the offense. Swashbuckle, cobbled wins, and a Tishana's Wayfinder.
This is team sealed, where you do get access to some really great cards, but
you also have access to Swashbuckling and River Herald's Boon in your red-green deck.
In your red-green deck, and Ken, I'll tell you what, he is making it work, because right now, Thomas Hendrix is chump blocking in the air.
This is going to be ugly. Thomas is going to go for a Sure Strike on the Pterodon Knight, and then Ken's going to have Unfriendly Fire.
Oh, no. Thomas doesn't really have a choice at this stage of the game. He is in full desperation mode, and there it is, Sure Strike, and Ken's going to show him, and that surely will be the end of the game, as Thomas Hendrix is now down to nothing on the battlefield.
His best play. Steadfast Altasaur is just really not going to do it against a 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, that Armasaur, decent little attacker, decent little blocker thanks to Vigilance, but no. Thomas Hendrix' life total is going to plummet from this stage.
Even if Thomas could survive here, the Colossal Dreadmaw would pick up a Cobbled Wings soon enough. And
Is that a dragon?
I guess so.
Flying Dinosaur, it's pretty close. Ken's also going to offer the trade here, while Hendrix is tapped out and cannot activate his Armasaur.
And Thomas really wants to keep the Armasaur around because if he draws a mountain, he can attack with it, turn on Raid, and then Fire Cannon Blast the Wayfinder out of the sky.
Honestly, I thought Ken might attack with the Hatchling there as well, but it doesn't look super relevant. Here's that Colossal Dreadmaw, and that's going to do it. Ken Yukihiro picks up game number 1 over Thomas Hendrix. And you know what that means, Luis? 2 games to the good now. Ken Yukihiro, Kentaro Yamamoto have won their game 1. Seth Manfield keeping it real here for Team Genesis. We are in the tiebreaker match for the Team Series Championship. We're going to find out who's going to be our champion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after these messages.
Looking for a place to hang out and play Magic? Head to your local game store this and every Friday to play Friday Night Magic events. Get more info at magic.wizards.com/FNM. Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers monthly limited and constructed events which lead to the yearly Magic Online Championship. Download Magic Online at mtgo.com and start earning the points you need to enter.
And welcome back to Boston, Massachusetts. We're here covering the Team Series Championship as we work our way through a tiebreak match between Team Musashi and Team Genesis. A little later in the day, we will be bringing you top 4 coverage of the World Championship. For now, Yuki Ichikawa versus Seth Manfield. Seth Manfield won Game 1, though he was the only player from Genesis to do so, as Team Musashi, Ken Yukihiro and Kentaro Yamamoto both won their Game 1, so they're up in the early stages here of this tiebreak that is going to decide the Team Series champion.
This has been quite the swing. Genesis won the first match, the A teams, when they faced off against each other, and then we're up games across other matches.
Yep.
In fact, even up a match in the second, and all of a sudden, they're in a tiebreak, and they're down a bunch of games.
Right. It has really started to fall apart for Team Genesis, and they need to right the ship. And here's a quick start from Yuki Ichikawa. Once again, about as quick as you can get in the format, to be honest. Wanted Scoundrels here picks up a Pirate's Cutlass, and bang, takes 6. It's turn 3.
Attacking for 6 on turn 3.
It's insane. Also, River Sneak, well, not the best blocker, as we know, though. This is a nice tempo play back for Seth Manfield here. Water Trap Weaver is going to keep the damage at bay, at least for a turn. Ichikawa, though.
Oh, man. Ichikawa has Tempest Caller and his own Water Trap Weaver. This is going to be a really hard game for Seth to win. Wanted Scoundrels really punishes decks that don't have removal.
Temporary answer here in the form of Water Trap Weaver, but Manfield is going to have to come up with a more permanent solution here to this massive creature attacking this early in the game.
And Seth has a hand which is typical of some of these Merfolk decks. He has like a second River Sneak in hand. He has Chart a Course, River Herald's Boon. These are all cards that are great when you're ahead. When you put your opponent on the back foot and you're winning a race, then these cards really perform well. But when your opponent goes turn 2 Wanted Scoundrels, turn 3 Pirate's Cutlass, turn 4 Water Trap Weaver, all of a sudden River Sneak just looks really, really bad.
Manfield looks like he's on the verge of passing the turn back.
He's offering
Storm Sculpture was the play there.
He's offering the double block on the Wanted Scoundrels here. But I think Ichikawa probably has plans for that. And because he bounced a Water Trap Weaver, Ichikawa knows that his Scoundrel's going to be tapped down on the next turn.
Well, it looks like we have a full-on race situation here. And Yuki Ichikawa is the one who's ahead in that race. Tempest Caller for him. Knocks Seth Manfield down to 8 after attacking for 6 there.
Ichikawa, unfortunately, doesn't have a third island. Otherwise, he could have played Dive Down on to stop the Water Trap Weaver from locking down Wanted Scoundrels.
Grip full of cards here for Manfield, but, you know, the ones that actually matter, pretty light. Take a look at his hand here, Luis.
And Seth is somewhat restricted on what he can cast, though Kumeta Speaker gives him a bit of efficiency. Being able to play 1-drop into Water Trap Weaver, Seth can actually crack back for 5 points of unblockable, 6 points of unblockable damage this turn if he so desires.
We did get the life totals fixed there, as it was an attack for 8. 6 from the Scoundrels and 2 from the Weaver. So Seth Manfield down to 6 life now. And this one is really getting away from him quickly.
Seth would also love to be able to take a little bit of time off to cast something like Chart a Course to hit his land drops, but he's just really not in a position to easily do that. Oh, Seth. Okay, for a second I thought he wasn't playing Water Trap Weaver, but he does want to play that pre-combat.
If he's going to attack anyway, he may as well get a little extra damage in. Is he thinking about tapping down the Tempest Caller to get in an additional 2 damage here?
Well, if he wants to double block the Wanted Scoundrels anyway, then he could just tap down the Tempest Caller. It's not because he wants to get additional damage. All his creatures are unblockable anyway. It's just he would rather battle in order to
Of course.
to trade off for the Scoundrels.
Right, so that's his plan here, is to throw a double block, and this is where, of course, combat tricks, any type of instant speed removal spell, bounce spell can be devastating, as Yuki Ichikawa can really press his advantage. Let's see what kind of stuff he's working with in hand. Does he have? Well, just dive.
He really needed to draw.
Now, does that work, though, here against the double block? That's a lot of extra toughness.
It does. It'll protect the Scoundrels because the natural double block is Water Trap Weaver and Kumina's Speaker on the Wanted Scoundrels. And then either take 2 from the other Water Trap Weaver or potentially put the Storm Sculptor somewhere. And Dive Down does thwart that plan.
Even though it's not the strongest combat trick, it might get the job done here.
I actually have been very impressed with Dive Down. It's one of the cards that's risen in my estimation the most.
Yeah, but it was started off pretty low.
It is true. We weren't particularly high on it.
No. But I agree. It has done a decent amount of work here. When a format gets fast, you want cheap interaction. And even if it's not premium stuff, killing a creature, getting rid of it for a turn, or bouncing it, as long as you're interacting, it can matter. And this is about as cheap as they get, 1 mana. And in comes the team here for Yuki Ichikawa. He lost the first game to Seth Manfield. He's looking to equalize here for Team Musashi. But he's facing a former world champion here. No easy. Nothing easy here for Yuki Ichikawa.
No, and again, the really obvious block, the most tempting one is to just put those 2/2s on the 6/4 Wanted Scoundrels. You get some treasure if this resolves successfully too. You get your reward for killing the Scoundrels.
And with 5 cards in hand for Manfield, that is really tempting, isn't it?
It is. You could play around Dive Down by triple blocking, but the problem is if Ichikawa doesn't have Dive Down, then you just lost an additional creature. In fact, a very valuable one. Storm Sculptor is very, very good.
Oh.
So that seems a little bit riskier.
See that Lukas Blohon is sitting to Seth Manfield's right as they work through, okay, if we block like this, what happens next turn? What is our recovery plan? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario?
Team Musashi seems like they are having a lot more fun throughout the course of this entire event.
Every time the camera goes on them, they're smiling. I think we'll get big smiles out of Genesis if they manage to take this thing down, but until then, it's all business.
That's a lot of pressure to trade down Storm Sculptor for Water Trap Weaver really indicates Seth is getting pressured a lot. The one reason to do that also is with Pirate's Cutlass in play, any creature on Ichikawa's side is pretty formidable.
And there we go, Dive Down to protect the Wanted Scoundrels. Kill it all. And board states are mostly traded off, just a River Sneak left over for Seth Manfield. But as you can see, Yuki still with 8 power on his side of the battlefield. Looking pretty good here. This is a huge turn for Manfield, but we know he has a lot of tools to work with in his hand. So let's see if he can stabilize this board.
Ichikawa is also one good draw step away from kind of just locking up this game. Like there's a lot of cards he could draw that would really just let him leverage the fact that he's already ahead on board and life totals to lock it up. But
what kind of cards does he want to see here?
Siren's Ruse would likely just end it because he could blink his Tempest Caller, re-trigger the ability, tap all Seth's creatures and attack for lethal. Another removal spell would mess up any potential double blocks, or another threat, especially with that Pirate's Cutlass in play. Any of Ichikawa's creatures does a little bit of extra work. Seth would love to be able to just take 1 turn. He's like, I just want 1 turn. I would like a turn to be able to chart a course, cast Stormfleet Spy, draw my 3 cards, start hitting land drops and getting a little bit more onto the board, but Ichikawa's just not really giving him that turn. Seth's already used up all those turns.
Right. The bad news, of course, for Ichikawa, though, is that he's just down to that swamp. So you were talking about the cards he'd like to draw. Well, he may need something here because Seth is going to put in some number of creatures with his 4 mana.
Yeah, and because Seth does have Stormfleet Spy, which can draw a card if he attacks with his River Sneak, and Chart a Course, which can draw him 2 cards, Seth can't afford to throw away a card every turn to the Wanted Scoundrels and still kind of keep his head above water. Or maybe below water, I don't know. Whichever place he wants to be.
Wherever the merfolk feel like. This is kind of interesting. He can attack with the River Sneak, get raid going, play chart a course, and for sure have another play. Or he could go for the Stormfleet spy here, but he'd have to hit a land. It's a little risky.
If he hits a land here, this works out pretty well.
He's doing it.
He missed.
He missed, but of course now, like you said, a top deck from Ichikawa to get that spy out of the way for the turn would give him the match. What did he find?
Look like a Dire Fleet Hoarder.
So he's going to move. Yeah, there you go. He's going to move over. This is not a lethal attack. So Manfield gets to just take 4 damage, drop down to 2, but any creature, it was a Dire Fleet Hoarder. And now that's 3 lethal threats that Seth Manfield's facing down, and having whiffed on that land drop is really hurting him.
Now Seth went for the high risk, high reward play, and well, it's called high risk for a reason. He did not get paid off.
Huh. 1 card down was that forest. The question is, does he have enough now?
Well, it's going to be hard because Seth can play a bunch of creatures this turn, but because of the Cutlass and because of the fact that the Scoundrel is already pretty big. In fact, Tempest Color's got decent stats on it too. Seth's probably looking at like chump block, trade for Dire Fleet Hoarder. That is not the way you want to live your life.
Is he actually going to chart a course here to try and find something better?
Yeah, he might be looking for something like a Water Trap Weaver, which would really buy him some extra time.
Oh, this is desperation time for Seth Manfield. Nope, he doesn't find it. And Yuki Ichikawa evens things up at 1 game apiece, so we're going to get a game 3 between those two before the day's over. And I also have to say that's Ken Yukihiro, Yuki Ichikawa, and Kentaro Yamamoto all having won a game at this point. And last we heard, Seth Manfield's the only one on Team Genesis to have taken a game. And here we go. Let's check in on Ken Yukihiro versus Thomas Hendrix, game number 2. That's Pounce. This looks really bad for Hendrix.
Ken Yukihiro got to get a treasure off Captain Lannery Storm, and then before blocks, use that treasure to cast Pounce to take out the Emissary of Sunrise.
Oh, that's cute.
Storm count of 1 here.
All right, well, Hendrix takes a big hit of damage, but as it turns out, he was actually at 20 life that time. So while a major setback, he has a little bit of wiggle room here. Perhaps he'll play a Glorifier of Dusk out of his hand. He also has Pious Interdiction and Ixalan's Binding, so 2 solid removal spells. But he can just play 1 spell per turn. He's going to go for the Glorifier.
And Glorifier does a good job of stabilizing. The one thing that Ken has done well, though, is if he can keep Territorial Hammerskull back, he doesn't do a very good job on defense. That card loses a lot of its potency if you're not attacking.
That's right. Grazing Whiptail now for Ken Yukihiro, but no attack this turn. So Thomas has in fact stabilized the board. He draws a mountain for the turn, has the 2 enchantment-based removal spells in his hand. He can start picking apart the board from Yukihiro.
And that Ixali's Keeper on Ken Yukihiro's side is going to provide a decent threat in a couple turns. With Lannery Storm adding a treasure on attack and 5 lands already in play, that leaves Ken at 6 mana, with an activation cost of 8. So that's like a decent reason to use Ixalan's Binding on the Ixali's Keeper. You don't want to Pious Interdiction it. That would not work out well.
Yeah, that's probably the worst case scenario there. Teammates conferring with each other to see which one of these 2 spells to play and when.
Well, the funny part about this scenario is it's not that any of Ken's creatures can even attack right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like Thomas really is excited about using this Pious Interdiction, but he's got 2 4-mana spells in hand and nothing else. He can't really afford to just sit there and do nothing, and it runs into a really bad problem if Ken draws, like, say, Unfriendly Fire to kill the Glorifier of Dusk and then just send in with everything.
Yeah, then the game just completely spirals on him. What did Ken find here? Arranging Raptors? Okay. Not super impressive on this board, just a 2/3 as it sits.
But Ken is just hitting a spell after spell, and eventually he's going to get to a point where he can just maybe attack with everything.
Ooh, this is a nice draw for him. Ken's actually going to keep this, but Crushing Canopy was the draw step for him there.
Ooh, if he can tempt Thomas into giving the Glorifier of Dusk flying, he can crush it. And even if he doesn't, that Pious Interdiction's days are numbered.
A second copy of Territorial Hammerskull here from Hendrix. Like you said, there's a lot of uses here. If you can get that thing in the air, he could shoot it down with Crushing Canopy, but also he can just use it to take down the Pious Interdiction, like you said, Luis. So lots of good potential options here for Yukihiro on that sideboard Crushing Canopy. It's looking pretty good here. He also has a copy of River Herald's Boon in hand now.
Yeah, that River Herald's Boon did some serious work against Thomas Hendrix in game 1, and
he does have a Tishana's Wayfinder there, right?
he does.
It's the only Merfolk he's got, but
Ken is in the very enviable position of having 5 lands in play, drawn all spells, Colossal Dreadmaw in hand. So if he draws a 6th land, like his consolation prize of playing a 6/6 trample, still pretty good. Whereas Thomas Hendrick is like, well, I hope I don't draw a single more land this game. And unfortunately for him, that's not really working out that well.
Here's Ixalan's Binding to take down that Dreadmaw, but that's another use for Crushing Canopy. That could get really nasty. Surprise Thomas Hendrix with a 6/6 trampler, perhaps on end step or maybe even during combat. And another good draw step, a snapping sailback off the top for Ken Yukihiro. This one's really starting to look good for Ken.
Definitely. I'm pouring through his deck list, seeing if he's got any riles or dual shots or fiery cannonades at the ready, because he's got 3 enraged creatures in play, maybe about to be a 4th enraged creature in play. So unfortunately for him, he does not have access to those cards. He has them in a sideboard, but I don't think he boarded them in.
This is interesting. It does look like he's found an attack here somewhere as well. Remember, he has that River Herald's Boon in hand that can help aid some type of combat.
It would also be great for Ken if he could get find a way to get Captain Lannery Storm into the red zone, because that extra treasure just gets him that much closer to Ixali's Keeper being active.
And he's done exactly that here, Luis. He attacked with Captain Lannery's Storm.
Storm count 2.
Lining up blocks now is Thomas Hendrix.
Basically, Thomas has one profitable block, which is putting the Glorifier of Dusk on any of these 3 creatures, and then a bunch of trades. So Ken's giving up the equity of the one profitable block while in order to get extra trade, to trade off creatures and get a treasure, and maybe clear the board. What complicates things is that Ken has a River Herald's Boon in hand, and he has this opportunity to go for it while Thomas is tapped out. Thomas has Sure Strike in hand, and Ken's seen that trick before. He really doesn't want to run into it. So I suspect if Glorifier gets into combat, River Herald's Boon is going to make sure it goes down one way or another, even if Ken has to lose that creature. And if Thomas does something like put a 3/3 on a 3/2, then all of a sudden River Herald's Boon could annihilate that combat step as well.
Very high upside here for Ken Yukihiro with this attack. So this is, I'm really curious to see how this goes. Is he going to put a counter on the Ravenous Daggertooth here just to take down the Glorifier? Yes, exactly as you described, Luis. Of course, the only other target there would be the Tishana's Wayfinder. In the process, though, Ken does end up losing 2 creatures. Captain Lannery Storm just got gobbled up there by the Hammerskull, and it was a trade with the Daggertooth, but things looking super good now for Ken Yukihiro, who's going to play his Snapping Sailback on end step.
He also has the option of just killing the Ixalan's Binding and
Yeah.
getting back Colossal Dreadmaw. So Ken, regardless, I think he's going to end up with a giant dinosaur into turn here.
That's right. Yeah, he may just want the Dreadmaw, even though it's a little bit less mana efficient. It's a much bigger creature, and trample, of course, is a big deal as well.
That Fathom Fleet Firebrand representing 5 points of damage because Thomas has just a ton of mana to sink into it. The one upside here for Thomas is that this Sure Strike right now is looking likely to be successful, so he can make a variety of blocks and use Sure Strike to win one of those combats. Thomas down deciding if he wants to attack with Pterodon Knight, but that is an aggressive attack. You got to win the game somehow, but when you're at 10, your opponent's at 20, and they have 4 creatures in play, it is kind of rough. Thomas, of course, doesn't know about the end of turn dinosaur and is going to be very dismayed to find out.
Yeah, that it could be the nails in the coffin here for Thomas Hendrix in this match, as Yukihiro has already picked up a game. And he's just going to go for the snapping sailback rather than the higher-powered creature, the Colossal Dreadmaw. But he still has that trick available to him. Of course, the Pterodon Knight also has flying right now, Luis, and can be a target by the Crushing Canopy.
Yeah, this could be a really brutal mid-combat for Thomas, because Crushing Canopy on the Pterodon Knight, oh, this is...
Oh no, Ken.
We're full on Jurassic Park here, Ken. These dinosaurs are rampaging out of control. Every exchange we've seen in this game has been advantage Kent over and over again.
Yeah, even that last attack that didn't look so hot on the surface as Captain Lannery Storm hit the bin with no damage going through, and it was just a trade, still favored Ken Yukihiro, and these ones are just 2-for-1 city here.
Yeah, he could even not use a Crushing Canopy and just content himself with getting a Dreadmaw back. I don't think it works out well for Thomas either way.
Ken says, I'd like to order them this way. So Ken could say go, and he does. He says pass priority, but now it looks like Hendrix is going to pump up the Fathom Fleet Firebrand not once, but twice. And then he's going to say, okay, let's just trade off. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. And as you can see, big chunks of the board going away, but as we know, Ken Yukihiro, he has an instant speed Colossal Dreadmaw in his hand. And we know that it sounds a little bit weird, but Crushing Canopy can kill Ixalan's Binding and get that back on end step and put Ken firmly in the lead in this game. Well, Thomas reasonably worried about the Ixali's Diviner, but that is not his biggest problem, as bang, there's a 6/6 Trampler on your end step, and this is going to clear the way for a mighty attack here with every single creature from Ken Yukihiro, and there's not much that Thomas is going to be able to do.
No, he's 1 point of power short of trading off Sure Strike for that Dreadmaw. As things stand, he can Hammer Skull block Raptors, take 7, fall to 2, hope to draw a creature, hope that Ken doesn't play another card this turn, because if Ken plays another card, Thomas is beyond dead. But if Ken plays nothing and Thomas draws a creature and is big enough to Sure Strike down the Dreadmaw next turn, Thomas could stabilize. It's very, very tenuous, but he has a chance here.
Well, there is one card in hand for Yukihiro. Don't know what it is, though.
Can I go to the restroom? Can you come with me, please? Yep.
Go. Still, big draw step here. What did he find? Legion's Judgment off the top for Thomas Hendrix to kill the biggest threat. This means that he could survive this turn.
Yeah, Thomas may need to use Sure Strike here in order to take down the Raptor.
Yeah, he is going to do that, but still he's going to fall down to 1.
Thomas is at 1, facing down just a 1/1 Raptor hatching, which is still going to attack next turn. It will turn into a 3/3. But Thomas has a chance here. He didn't have much of a chance a few turns ago, but we're down to the wire. And if Ken just drew 2 lands in a row, if Ken draws 2 more lands and Thomas draws 2 more spells, this game could shift completely.
That was a spell. What was it? He passed the turn back. What does Ken find? Nothing. A land off the top. Force block here from Hendrix. 3/3 Dinosaur with Trample hits the battlefield. Ken needs an answer. Oh, he finds an answer for it, too. A Bonded Horncrest off the top for Thomas Hendrix.
And this is still a trade because the Bonded Horncrest requires that the Territorial Hammer Skull get into combat here.
Right, so he'll kill the Hammer Skull, trade off. Oh, but there's a Jade Guardian for Ken Yukihiro, and a creature is needed for Hendrix here. Does he have it?
He does not.
He doesn't have it. Ken Yukihiro extends the hand. Excuse me, Thomas Hendrix extends the hand, and that's Ken Yukihiro winning his match 2-0 over Thomas Hendrix and putting Team Musashi 1 single match win away from being our team series champions here. Let's move over to Seth Manfield versus Yuki Ichikawa. Last we were here, Yuki won the game to force a game 3, and that's where we're at right here. So Team Musashi's fate lies with Yuki Ichikawa right now.
And Seth didn't have a 1-drop, his Kamina Speaker. Didn't have a 2-drop, neither of his River Sneaks.
What does he have?
This is not the start Seth wants. He's got an aggressive Merfolk deck. We've seen it before. His deck does not play all that well from behind, and he's just not on the board at all here.
Well, Ichikawa plays a Dire Fleet Hoarder and passes the turn back to Manfield. This is a big turn here. Seth, ooh, is that an Etsuken Archer?
It is. So this does explain Seth's slow start. Etsuken Archer is the perfect play here.
Yeah, now the bad news, of course, is that there's a treasure left behind, but he'll take it. Solid 2-for-1 there for Seth Manfield, developing his board while taking a key 2 drop off the battlefield there for Ichikawa, a little 2-1. Ah. Deadeye Tormentor, though, is the follow-up play here for Yuki Ichikawa, and he does, in fact, have Raid going, thanks to that skittering Heartstopper attack. So Seth is going to have to discard a card, though. With that many cards in hand, you got to figure not super high impact. River Sneak. What the? Where were those the whole time? There's a Kamena Speaker as well.
Seth drew Kamena Speaker on turn 3 and River Sneak on turn 4. So maybe not the sequencing he was looking for, but yeah, the River Sneak's still going to be pretty good here.
Yeah, he's got a nice board built out at this point. Land number 4 for Ichikawa. He's just going to go for the Water Trap Weaver here to tap down the archers and clear the way for an attack with both creatures. Offering a trade, really with either.
Ooh, if Seth goes for a block here, Skullduggery is just going to wreak havoc. One of the blocks Seth might make here is just putting Kamena Speaker on, say, the Deadeye Tormentor. If then Skullduggery kills the River Sneak, gives the Tormentor ++1, Seth just ends up dramatically far behind.
Wow, and you know, the obvious blocks are those. And look at this, Seth Manfield shows why he's a world champ. He's not going to fall for it. He's just going to take it.
No, and he knows about the presence of Skullduggery at this point, and he has to respect it. Seth choosing also to wait till he has a River Herald's boon up. Ichikawa needs another threat here. Currently, he's got 2 good combat tricks in hand. He's got Dive Down and Skullduggery, but he would really love like a Pirate's Cutlass or even like a Wanted Scoundrels, like something with power and toughness that can really help him utilize those combat tricks to their fullest potential.
Yeah, all told, Seth Manfield's board is pretty small. You know, only 4 power total across these creatures. Though a Water Trap Weaver will clear the way for some damage here. It looks like he's going to chip in for 4.
And Ichikawa doing a very good job not signaling that he has Skullduggery. He could have just taken out that River Sneak at some point. He feels like he can get a better deal from it. Well, Tempest Caller, this isn't the best time to slam it in the sense that the tapping ability is not quite as lucrative, but Tempest Caller is still just a creature, again, that has stats and can interact with Seth's board as well as get a little bit of damage in right now.
Yuki's thinking about his options here.
Well, he's thinking about which land to leave untapped because he has a 1 blue combat trick and a 1 black combat trick, but he also has the Skittering Heartstopper, so what land he leaves untapped signals a lot, even though he's got the treasure, right? So he can cast both no matter what. But by leaving a blue up, he's actually signaling Dive Down because with Skittering Heartstopper in play, you generally leave a black man up.
Yeah, that's a pretty on the nose too, isn't it? He even points to it before casting it.
Well, I think he's also deciding whether he wants to attack with it, but he's come to the conclusion that because he's got a 2/3 back, he's probably fine just sending in. Every point of damage is going to matter when he's trying to, kind of squeak it out with small creatures backed by kind of small combat tricks. Again, Ichikawa needs something with a little bit of muscle.
Yeah, we saw that in game 2 from him when he played Wanted Scoundrels on turn 2, then gave it a sword on turn 3.
Yeah, Ichikawa would kill for a Pirate's Cutlass right now. That would be one of the best draws in his entire deck.
He has 2. River Sneak continues to chip away. Ichikawa not wanting to use that Skullduggery. Like you said, he's looking for something a little more upside than just killing 1 creature. Well, Seth Manfield's going to punish him a bit for it here. He gets to draw a card here from the Stormfleet Spy that he played post-combat. Of course, raid enabled by the Sneak.
Seth angling his board for a new angle of attack here. of Ichikawa can't feel confident about attacking into River Herald's Boon. Skullduggery is a great combat trick, but because of the way that the stats are on the board right now, Ichikawa would be prompted to use his trick first, which the follow-up of River Herald's Boon not going to work out well.
Teams huddled around their star players here as they play an incredibly important game here, and one that could in fact decide our Team Series championship.
This changes things a lot. Mark of the Vampire on the Skittering Heartstopper, 3/4 that gains Death Touch, which means that any double block gets punished a lot, and with Dive Down and Skullduggery, Ichikawa has 2 combat tricks up with 1 land and 1 treasure.
Wow!
This could get really ugly for Seth.
Hey, you said he wanted power and toughness, and boy did he find one. A nice 3/4 here. And it's one, this is such a tough spot for Manfield, right? Because the lifelink means that it must be dealt with. He can't simply just take hits from it over and over again. Yet the Death Touch, of course, means that dealing with it very difficult when you're on a bunch of small creatures. Oh, this is a huge swing.
So the base level trick here from Ichikawa is to go Skullduggery, give your River Sneak -1/-1, give my Skittering Heartstopper +1/+1. It's a 4/5. You've got 2 2/2s. Seth can respond to that by casting River Herald's Boon, saving the River Sneak, and then putting a +1/+1 counter on one of his 2 2/2s that'll block the Heartstopper. Ichikawa can then give Death Touch and trade it all off, or he can use Dive Down and to make his Skittering Heartstopper big enough to survive, but not big enough to kill both the creatures. So what Seth wants to do is whichever blocker got ordered second, put the +1/+1 counter from River Herald's Boon on that, forcing Ichikawa to give Death Touch if he wants to kill both. But this is a lot of levels deep, so it's interesting to see how these players kind of evaluate what's going on right now.
Yeah, I heard Seth just go, I'm not sure which one, I'm just going to block like this. But this is going to open the door for a big blowout here. We've seen Team Musashi dominate the Team Series throughout the course of the season, and now they may be inching closer and closer to closing it out and becoming our first Team Series champions. I got to tell you, it's not looking great for Team Genesis here. They got to get out of this mess, and then Lukas Blohon has to win back-to-back games against Kentaro Yamamoto if they are going to take the trophies home. Dire situation here for Genesis. Musashi with a big advantage here in game number 3.
So it looks like blocks are ordered. Water Trap Weaver first.
And here is Skullduggery from Ichikawa. +1/+1. And it looks like he's going to just try to win combat here across the board.
Yeah, now that Seth has put additional blocks in, that opens the door for Skullduggery to let Ichikawa win a combat. That doesn't change where River Herald's Boon goes on terms of the Skittering Heartstopper combat, but it does now shift the second +1/+1 counter to maybe the Stormfleet Spy.
Now, and also, though, will this force Yuki Ichikawa to use that treasure and give Death Touch?
Well, Yuki's going to have 2 options here. One
Okay.
is that he can give Death Touch and trade Heartstopper for both the Speaker and the Water Trap Weaver, or he can sack the treasure, add blue, use Dive Down, save the Heartstopper. It's not going to be able to kill both creatures Seth has, so that's why it's actually really important for Seth to put the +1/+1 counter from River Herald's Boon on his Kumena Speaker instead of his Water Trap Weaver.
I see.
Because otherwise, Ichikawa gets to kill the 3/3 instead of the 2/2 without using Death Touch.
That's right. But of course, Yuki Ichikawa wants to keep that 3/4 lifelinker around,
Yeah,
right?
he has a lot of incentive to use the Dive Down here instead of using Death Touch.
Complicated attack step here, but a critical one to this match. That's Lukas Blohon's hand there, pointing things out here for Seth Manfield as he works his way through. There's River Herald's Boon.
And he also could put the counter on the Archer and just to kill the Deadeye Tormentor. And that way you keep a 2/5, and either way you're just killing one of the 2/2s, so you might as well actually just put it on the Archer instead of the 2/2. And it looks like they got there.
Yep.
They put the counter on the second creature ordered, and now it's in the ball is in Ichikawa's court.
Okay, so these things resolve. And once again, Ichikawa's incentive here is to try to keep his lifelinking and potentially death-touching creature alive rather than trading a 2-for-2 here on that top combat.
Right, and the other thing is that if you think for a while, they're just going to know you have Dive Down anyway, because otherwise you just automatically give Death Touch.
Right. So he does, in fact, make that play. That was a flurry of a combat there. Skullduggery, River Herald's Boon, dive down. And after the dust settles, things once again still looking good for Yuki Ichikawa.
Yeah, he also gets to gain 4 life out of that combat step. And Skittering Heartstopper can trade for multiple of Seth's cards here.
Seth needs to find some way. You know, a bounce spell would be great. He's in blue. Does he have a Depths of Desire or something along those lines? Because that would really solve this problem for him. Of course, that is one of the biggest weaknesses that cards like Mark of the Vampire face are against these blue decks who have multiple bounce spells at both common and even an uncommon one as well. But Seth doesn't have it. He's just got more of the same here. A Storm Sculptor and a Deeproot Warrior in hand, it looks like.
And so far, Seth still hasn't assembled a 4-power creature, so he can take down the Heartstopper, but he'll lose 2 creatures as a result. That does leave Ichikawa ahead, but not dramatically so. The Water Trap Weaver is being held back by the Etsukan Archer. The Tempest Caller also is being held back by the Etsukan Archer or the Kumena Speaker. And Seth's going to be able to, even if he has to trade, say, the Kumena Speaker and like the Deeproot Warrior for the Skittering Heartstopper, he's still got good blocks here.
He's actually going to chip in there with the 2/5 rather than the River Sneak.
So this indicates that Seth wants to trade Kumena Speaker plus River Sneak for Skittering Heartstopper.
Ooh, Vanquish the Weak off the top for Yuki Ichikawa.
That's going to be really problematic for Seth because he's fairly likely to go for this double block here, and then Vanquish the Weak is just going to completely annihilate his plans.
I mean, he just has to go for this, right?
Certainly.
Especially given that Ichikawa is top decking. I mean, what are the chances he draws a card like this? As it turns out, 100% in this scenario, and this is going to be a blowout. He's going to give Death Touch. Oh,
he's not going for it.
Okay, interesting. So Ichikawa is going to be content to just take the double, the trade there and pass the turn back. And he's going to have to lean on his remaining 2 creatures to help get the job done, though. They've got some work to do with Seth Manfield at 10. Why not go for the blowout there?
He's potentially worried about dive down, but see, the thing is, even if Seth had dive down, then the Death Touch would still just trade for both creatures.
3 for 2, yeah.
So potentially he was worried about River Herald's Boon, but he could have targeted the River Sneak, and then River Herald's Boon wouldn't save it, and then all that would do is prompt a trade again. So that's a fairly conservative play from Ichikawa.
Players are examining their options.
And Ichikawa content to just take 2 and have the Tempest Caller bounce.
What does he draw for the turn? Yeah, and there it is. The Vanquish the Weak takes care of the Windstrider. And Seth Manfield is now at 6 life.
Yeah, that worked out well for Ichikawa.
Still, he's got a precarious attack scenario here, right?
And Ichikawa drew Contract Killing.
Wow.
So he's going to be able to take out.
Spell?
So Seth's going to play Storm Sculptor unless you do something better, and he's going to get to replay his Deeproot Warrior. This game has actually gotten fairly close. Ichikawa is certainly ahead on life total, but the way the board works, Contract Killing can take out the Etsukan Archer, and then Ichikawa and Seth's creatures can just trade off, and they'll just be in a completely empty board, even if Ichikawa's got a life total advantage. Can't help but think what Vanquish the Weak would have done if it had been used on the Skittering Heartstopper double block.
I thought for sure he was going to go for that.
And in fact, casting Contract Killing here doesn't need to necessarily accomplish a ton, because you could just kill the Storm Sculptor and pass and just content yourself with dealing with the Archer later.
Looks like Ichikawa wants to get more aggressive than that. He's actually going to take out the archer.
Well, one of the tough things about doing too much trading here is that you end up with 2 Pirates Cutlass and a Fell Flagship in your deck with no creatures to play. So that is one reason not to attack with Water Trap Weaver here, even though you do get to trade it up.
Now he's forcing the issue here with his 2-3. Only reasonable block here is the Storm Sculptor. Seth has to feel like pretty incentivized to block here, right? Like,
yeah, he's going to be forced to block. The thing is, you don't want to trade down. Storm Sculptor is better than Tempest Caller once they're both in play. But if Seth misses on his next draw step or his next 2 draw steps, he's eventually going to trade and just be down life. Plus, getting rid of Tempest Caller when you know your opponent has Siren's Ruse in their deck is not the worst thing in the world. And double Pirate's Cutlass means that if Ichikawa drew one of those and put it on the Tempest Caller, then that trade is just off the table. So Ichikawa's ahead here. It is close. It is closer than it was before. One top deck from either side could break it open, and Ichikawa has more of those because of the life total advantage. He gets to be aggressive.
wow, Manfield took it and fell to 4 life here. Like you said, not wanting to make the trade, but goodness sakes, that's risky business going down to 4 here. Seth really relying on the top of his library. It looks like he may have found something because he's attacking for 3 damage here. Well, it was a river sneak.
That opens up double block potentials, but Ichikawa can now attack with both of his creatures.
Oof, Ichikawa wanted to see something instant speed off the top of his library, but he found a swamp instead. Well, now it's just a 1-for-1. So he's going to send in his smaller of the 2 creatures, Water Trap Weaver. Oh, look at Team Genesis.
Oh yeah, they are feeling it.
Land go.
Each turn is, each draw step is just so huge here.
This is a massive top deck war between the 2 players here. Again, Ichikawa's the one who's ahead because of his life total, which gives him a much bigger cushion.
Seth didn't draw anything. If he's not attacking the Storm Sculptor, he did not draw anything.
That's right, and Ichikawa's going to know that. What does he find off the top of his library?
Deadeye Plunderers.
Deadeye Plunderers, I think, is what he found, and he's attacking now. Now Seth's going to trade.
Oh,
and it is Deadeye Plunderers off the top.
Ichikawa drew a 5-5 that can grow to a 6-6 next turn. Seth's going to be in mono chump block mode. Seth needs to find really an impressive string of cards. Water Trap Weaver is one of the best ones to start with. If he can do that, maybe he can claw his way back into it, but this is going to be really hard otherwise.
Yeah, even a land off the top for Ichikawa lets him spit out 2 treasures next turn. At any rate, though, we're talking about a lethal attacker that is much bigger than most of the cards in Seth Manfield's library, and even some of the double blocks don't work. What did Manfield find?
Looks like a Deathgorge Scavenger.
Yeah, the card he drew before that looks like it was a Slice in Twain, which is woefully without target here.
Can't even cycle it on a treasure. It's sack it in response.
Yep, doesn't work out for him. We could be seeing the last stages of Genesis's run here in the Team Series Championship as Team Musashi moves ever closer. They were far and away the best team during the series as it went, but this is a way now for Seth to get some life back. The Deathgorge Scavenger can gain him 2 life here by exiling a creature and putting him back up to 6. Can he claw his way back in? It's going to be so difficult against this massive Plunderers. That was a desperate Castaways off the top for Ichikawa, and he's going to first off force a chump block.
Desperate Castaways are the 3 members of Genesis just watching the match.
Indeed, they're stranded on the sideline there. But remember, those 2 treasure means that those can, in fact, attack as well. What did Seth Manfield find? This is a huge top deck.
Run aground.
Ooh, he actually found one of his, well, we'll call it a removal spell here for blue, a run aground.
So that means that Seth can attack, make Deathgorge Scavenger a 4/3 on attacks by exiling a non-creature spell. Ichikawa drops to 8. Ichikawa attacks back. Seth casts Run Aground on the Deadeye Plunderers.
In response, Ichikawa is going to make an additional treasure.
Yeah, playing around to fight cards, like Pounce, for example. The Deadeye Plunders gets bounced to the top of Ichikawa's library after he draws. Depths of Desire.
Yep, that's exactly what he found off the top of his library there. There's no problem for Seth to say, you may attack me. Of course, taking the damage is a problem.
Ichikawa then, if Seth exiles a creature with Deathgore Scavenger, Seth would go to 8, Ichikawa would go to 5.
Ichikawa puts lethal damage into the red zone, but Seth has the answer here with Run Aground.
I think you actually want to bounce your own Deadeye Plunders. I think that's a reasonable play here.
That's exactly what he's going to do. He has plenty of treasure left over so he can recast the Plunderers, and remember, Seth is taking 2 here as well.
And that drops Seth to 4, and then the Deadeye Plunders comes out as a 6/6 still. It prevents the Deathgore Scavenger from attacking. It forces Seth to just pass the turn. Seth really needs to find something here.
Immense pressure on Seth Manfield here. Yuki Ichikawa not relenting in any way, shape, or form, trying to seal the deal for Team Musashi. Can he get the job done? Seth is scrapping and fighting and doing everything he can to stay alive for Team Genesis. But this one may be slipping away from them. Yuki Ichikawa has Seth down to just 4 life. Seth with 1 creature left on the battlefield. Land go from Seth Manfield, and this is just about in the books. Was that a
It was a Water Trap Weaver.
It was a Water Trap Weaver to seal the deal, and that's going to do it. Team Musashi wins the Team Series Championship. You know, you got to love it. They kind of went end-to-end with it from the very first Pro Tour. They were in the lead, and they never relinquished it all the way through here to the finals. And big celebration from the team from Japan, Team Musashi. Congratulations to them. Great work as they look at the cameras. And welcome back. That is Luis Scott Vargas. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. We're in the booth, and a fantastic finish from really the premier team. You know, there were a lot of teams that looked really good coming in, and Musashi just smashed throughout the course of the entire season.
Oh, yeah. This is a well-deserved win for them. You always like it. It's like when someone, you know, dominates the Swiss and then makes the top 4. You want to see them close out the tournament.
Interesting analogy as we start to, you know, kind of work our brain space a little bit forward towards the top 4. But here, of course, we've got our Team Series champions, Team Musashi from Japan. Congratulations to them, every single one of them. With more updates and such, let's head to the news desk.
Well, Musashi is the name of a legendary Japanese samurai, and Team Musashi themselves going down as in history as the first winners of the Team Series Championship. Paul, what are your thoughts on everything that's happened so far today?
Oh, just some great magic. That was a lot of back and forth, especially that last game. I mean, it really just came down to top deck wars. Who was going to come back? And Seth looked like he had no chance. Then he drew the Scavenger. Then he drew the Runner Ground, and he might have actually been able to win that race. But then Yuki Ichikawa drew the Depths of Desire to bounce his creature and play it again. It was just so back and forth. It was great to see.
And Musashi was really up against it after our first set of matches and managed to come back.
Right, they were down a match. They were down a game.
Yeah.
And then had to basically just kind of reverse sweep and win everything to actually come back.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think there's some fantastic history as well, because you said they go down in history as the first team champions. But, you know, if you look at Magic's history, 2004, Masahiro Kuroda, the first Japanese Pro Tour champion. And then you go through the sort of the golden era of Japanese Magic. You look at 2006, Shota Yasuoka being the player of the year. 2007, Tomohiro Saito, Shuhei Nakamura, 2008. But for the last few years, again, it's been a little bit fallow. But now, again, it's almost impossible to imagine 15 years ago a team series, and the idea that you'd put 6 Japanese players and they'd be the favorites and dominate, it's nonsense. And now we saw them, and they've pillar to post. They've been utterly dominant, and Marshall said it. They were, from the very start, they looked like the best team, they played like the best team, and they won like the best team that they are. fantastic.
I remember interviewing Yuya Watanabe at the last Pro Tour, and I asked him, you know, how did you put this team together? And he said to me, he just kind of looked at me and he said, well, we picked the 6 best players and we put them on a team. I don't know what to tell you.
That does seem, yeah.
Turns out that works. Yeah, in Magic.
Yeah, we didn't need 7 to be available, didn't need 8 to be available, just the best 6. So they are behind us, as you can already see in the shot, gearing up for the award ceremony. Marshall Sutcliffe will be down there in a bit. Team Sealed does provide a lot of fun. I think that the surprise, Paul, though, is that we saw all sorts of very niche cards. It wasn't super powered, so just great stuff, though. But the players are ready. Marshall Sutcliffe is ready. Let's crown the inaugural Team Series champions.
And welcome to the feature match area here for the award ceremony for the Team Series Championship. Look at these gentlemen here. From Japan, your Team Series champions, Team Musashi.